Hello everybody, welcome along to Sportsbet TV. Paul Alster here with you at the start of a very exciting week of racing at Royal Ascot. It's amazing that Ascot is actually going ahead after all we've been through. It's a very unusual Royal Ascot because there'll be no royals and there'll be no crowd. So they're racing behind closed doors. It's going to be a weird atmosphere. We also don't really have very much form at all to go on this year. Normally by the time we reach the third week in June, we've had a couple of classics, we've had lots of trial races, many horses have had one or two runs, but that's not the case this year. There could be a lot of surprises, and while certainly it's going to be great to have a bet, and especially with British betting shops open for business now this week, it's worth having an investment. I think those investments need to be just toned down a little bit because things could be a little bit haywire. Now, just before we go to Royal Ascot, a very quick word about the weekend, because we came so close with Leon Cavallo for the second time in a week last week. First of all, we had One Voice touched off by this much over at Navan, and then at Sandown on Saturday, Leon Cavallo, our recommendation at 4-1, was beaten in a photo finish, which you'll see was just a fraction of an inch he was beaten, and he was such a certainty, it appeared, inside the last 50 yards that he actually traded in running on the exchanges at 100-1 on, and there was over £3,000 matched at 1.01 on Betfair, and he got beat. So there's no such thing as a certainty, as we know, but we're certainly knocking on the door, and hopefully we'll walk through with some good winners this week at Royal Ascot. We're going to look first at Tuesday and Wednesday, two recommendations for each day where the going is good at Royal Ascot. And our first is a filly that's already done us a favour on this service. You might remember Nazif, who's trained by John Gosden. She popped up to win a listed race at Kempton a couple of weeks ago, and she beat the very classy Billiston Brook. Now, she's clearly going the right way, and she's stepping up in grade to tackle the Group 2 Duke of Cambridge Stakes over the straight mile on Tuesday at 4:10 at Royal Ascot, and we think she's going to take the beating. We know she's fit, which is something we're not sure about with a lot of her rivals. She's clearly in form, and she seems to be improving very fast. Jim Crowley once again is on board. He's the retained jockey for owner Hamdana Al Maktoum, and we think that Nazif is going to do the business. And at the time of this recording, there's one standout bet with Bet365 who go at 100-30. Everybody else is 3-1 and 11-4. I suspect she might be very well backed, so it might be wise to take the 100-30 being offered at the moment by Bet365 for Nazif in the 4:10 race at Royal Ascot on Tuesday. Now, for our second selection on day one, we're going to the opening race of the meeting, the 1:15 race at Royal Ascot on Tuesday. It's not usually the first race of the meeting, that is usually the Queen Anne Stakes, but things are up in the air, and they've thrown in this extra race, the Buckingham Palace Handicap at 1:15 over 7 furlongs. And our recommendation is a horse who over the years has been a great servant to Connections. He's trained by Dean Ivory and is the mount of Joey Haynes. He's number 7 on the card. It might be lucky number 7. And we recommend each way at 25-1 Flaming Spear. He's a horse who a couple of years ago was in terrific form, landing a few gambles for his owner Tony Bloom, who owns Brighton Football Club and also owns a number of very good racehorses who have won big prizes and are often well supported. Well, he came down the handicap last year with less weight to carry because he wasn't in the best of form, but he's a horse who goes very well when fresh. And 2 years ago at Royal Ascot he came 5th of 30 in the Royal Hunt Cup over a mile, so we know he goes well after a break. I think this 7 furlongs is ideal for him, and this might be the time to catch him. Now, there are 4 firms who are offering 6 places each way at 25-1. They are Skybet, Unibet, Paddy Power and Betfair. So if he wins at 25-1, you're laughing all the way to the bank. If he comes in the first 6 without winning, you're still going to be paid out at 5-1 your money for the place. So Flaming Spear each way in the opening race at Royal Ascot on Tuesday, the 1:15, is our selection. We'll move very swiftly on to Wednesday, day 2. There are 2 more recommendations. The first is in the 150 at Royal Ascot. That is the Group 3 Hampton Court Stakes. Now you may remember Kenzai Warrior was our recommendation for the 2,000 guineas at big odds. He's trained by Roger Teal and is the mount of Jason Watson. But everything went wrong at the start in the guineas. He reared up as the stalls opened. He lost all momentum and he lost about 5 lengths on the others, and you can't do that in a classic race. In the circumstances, he did pretty well to finish through into 9th of the 15, and we think that the extra 2 furlongs might well prove to be a bonus for him and see him produce even better form. Last year he was unbeaten in his only 2 starts, including in a Group 3, and we think he's worth chancing at 16 to 1 with Betfair and Paddy Power. He's got a bit of ground to make up with the likes of Juan Elcano, who was 5th in the Guineas, but I think you can overlook what happened there, and I think he's worth another chance. That's Kenzai Warrior, each way 16 to 1 in the 150 at Ascot on Wednesday. And for our final selection for this bulletin, we go to Royal Ascot on Wednesday at 2:25. The King George V Handicap is over 1.5 miles. It is for 3-year-olds only, and there is a really interesting contender, trained by the great Sir Mark Prescott, one of the smartest men in racing, and ridden by the excellent and power-packed jockey Luke Morris. The horse is called Bodyline. Now this is a handicap, and he's stepping up to this trip for the first time, and Sir Mark is a living legend of laying horses out for big handicap races, especially those that are unexposed, having had a few runs as a 2-year-old, and then he steps them up in trip and all of a sudden they improve. And we think that is going to be the case with Bodyline, who was a 7-furlong winner at Epsom last season. He was a very eye-catching second at Yarmouth over 1.25 miles a couple of weeks ago. That should have blown away the cobwebs. We think he's going to be spot on for that King George V handicap on Wednesday, and he's offered at 9 to 1 each way across the board. None of the bookmakers are putting their head above the parapet. They're all nervous about Bodyline. We think each way for 4 places he's the one to have your money on in that race at Royal Ascot, the 2:25 on Wednesday. So that's it for now. This is Paul Alster signing off, wishing you the very best of luck. Enjoy Royal Ascot. No crowd, no royals, but it's still going to be wonderful racing. Have a great week. We'll be back with more on Wednesday, looking ahead to Thursday and Friday.